Welcome to Reddit Confessions.
The secure line rang at 2:14 a.m., and before I was even fully awake, I knew something was wrong. That line doesn't ring unless the world is on fire, or about to be. I slid out of bed, careful not to wake Ashley. Old habit. Even in the chaos of a national security crisis, I found myself moving gently around her, like she was a porcelain thing I was trying not to break. She stirred once, rolled over, and muttered something I couldn't make out. Her arms stretched toward the place where I'd been. I stared for a beat too long before I picked up the phone. Renfield. Level 7 escalation. Operational briefing at 0300 hours. You're needed in ops. Just like that. No explanation, no time to ask questions. I dressed in the dark. The house was cold, quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you're still dreaming. I tried not to look back at the bed, at her. But I did. Ashley lay tangled in the sheets, moonlight tracing the line of her bare shoulder. God, she looked so peaceful. I wondered when that had stopped being comforting. The drive-in was a blur. The world was empty, highways slick with February frost. DC slept while the gears of surveillance spun faster in the dark. At headquarters, I went through the biometric checkpoints on autopilot. My clearance, TS/SCI, meant I was one of the few allowed past the last set of doors, the ones that hissed like pressure valves sealing off the truth. The briefing was already in progress when I walked in. There was a flagged packet, traffic routed through Frankfurt, buried in satellite data. A coded message in Persian that raised every red flag we had. Kayali Farib Dayton. The illusion deceives. It was an activation phrase. One we'd seen before, once, tied to a now-dormant cell that specialized in coordinated, symbolic attacks. The kind designed to destabilize economies, so terror, erode trust. We were still decoding, still trying to find the intended target. Then the imagery came up. Surveillance capture. Heat sensor overlay, time-stamped 2 nights ago. Facial recognition kicked in. I leaned in, sipped my coffee, prepared to scan for known threats. Her hand on his chest. My wife. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Sleep deprivation? Bad lighting? But no, it was her. No question. That smile I knew by heart. That tilt of her head. The necklace I gave her last Christmas. I zoomed in on the man. Amir Khoury. Under investigation. Suspected links to Yemeni insurgent groups, Balkan weapons smugglers. Charming. Educated. Dangerous. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded, so hard I thought people would hear it echo in the room. Ashley. With him. Not just cheating. Entwined with someone I had personally flagged for deeper surveillance just 3 weeks ago. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the goddamn monitor off the wall. Instead, I just stared, my fingers numb around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. I don't remember the rest of the briefing. Just that picture. That moment. Because now, I had a choice to make. Was she a fool? A traitor? Or was I the idiot who never saw it coming? Either way, everything I thought I knew, about my marriage, my job, my sanity, just detonated in the flicker of a satellite image. And I had no idea what came next. But it was Ashley. And it was him. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I drove to a safe house. One of the nondescript brick-front rentals scattered through Northern Virginia, used by field officers when they needed a place to think, to hide, to unravel. My keycard still worked. That was something. I locked the door behind me and slumped into the chair at the tiny kitchen table, light flickering overhead, the silence so thick it made my ears ring. My mind was unraveling faster than I could contain it. I thought about the last few weeks, the distance between us, the evasions, the weird shift in her mood that I wrote off as seasonal depression or burnout. The way she suddenly had yoga nights and book clubs she never talked about. Jesus, was I that blind? I opened my briefcase and pulled out a printout of the last surveillance package on Khoury. Still warm from the printer. Cross-referenced with financial intel, pattern of life analysis, movement logs. There were gaps. Intentional ones. He was disciplined, the kind of man who'd been doing this a long time. But not perfect. I traced his last known rendezvous point, a downtown hotel. A familiar hotel. Ashley had stayed there 2 weekends ago when she said she was attending a conference for work. I felt my face go cold. I opened her calendar on our shared cloud account, innocuous entries. But she'd blocked out that entire weekend. I checked the CCTV archive the agency had sourced through a vendor. Facial recognition hit. 2 entries. Curry, Ashley. 2 hours apart. Same elevator. Same floor. I stared at the footage until my eyes burned. My fingers clenched so tight around the edge of the desk that the wood creaked. She lied to me. Repeatedly. With ease. While I was monitoring threats to national security, she was walking them through the front door. Was it naivety? Was she in love? Or was it something more sinister? I grabbed the photos, flipped them over, scattered them across the table like tarot cards. Ashley and Curry, stepping out of the cafe. Ashley, in the hotel hallway, looking at her phone, unaware of the camera above. Curry, 2 steps behind. And then the last one. Ashley, face close to his, eyes closed, lips brushing his cheek. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't just danger. It was intimacy. That image gutted me. 1,000 classified decisions I'd made in my life. Pulling trigger strings on drone strikes, flagging terror cells, burying secrets in the name of protection. None of them had ever hollowed me out the way this did. This wasn't just a betrayal of marriage. It was a breach of identity. Who was I if I couldn't even see what was happening in my own home? I sat there in the dim kitchen, photos scattered, coffee gone cold, heart frozen. A part of me wanted to bring this to my superiors. Flag her. Let the machine eat her alive. Another part, the softer, dying part, wanted to hear her side. Maybe even beg for a truth I could live with. And a darker part? A part one hadn't known existed until now? It wanted to burn everything down. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in that kitchen with the heater whining and the hum of paranoia growing louder inside my skull. By 6 a.m., I was back at Fort Meade. The thing about working at the NSA is, once you know too much, you stop believing in coincidences. You learn to read silence, to question patterns, to understand that betrayal rarely announces itself. It leaks, slow, insidious, until you're already drowning. I bypassed standard reporting protocol and went to a secure server in the sublevel. Not because I was trying to hide what I was doing, because I needed to know more before anyone else did. If Ashley was compromised, the fallout wouldn't stop with her. It would reach me, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I pulled up Curry's contact network, stretching it out on the screen like a spider web. Dozens of names. Some flagged, some clean. A few glowed yellow, potential assets, or soft connections still being vetted. Then one name blinked red. It was tied to an internal anomaly flag, a flagged transaction routed through an education nonprofit in D.C. I opened it. Ashley. A consulting invoice. $3,200. Paid under her maiden name. For strategic communications training. My stomach dropped. I stared at the document, numb. The nonprofit was a front. We'd known that for years. Shell Corp tied to a Lebanese investor whose paper trail connected, faintly, back to Curry. And she had been paid. My wife had been paid. For what? She had no background in strategic communications. Her degree was in art history. The closest she'd come to comms strategy was helping pick out wedding invitations. I dug deeper. Found a follow-up payment. Smaller. Coded as a travel stipend. 6 weeks ago. Same week she spent 2 nights with her sister in Bethesda. There were only 2 possibilities. Either she was stupid and being used, or she knew exactly what she was doing. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. The screen felt like it was pulsing, like it was mocking me. The door to the secure room opened behind me. I turned instinctively, minimizing the screen. It was Keller, a fellow analyst, younger, brilliant, always nosy. He raised an eyebrow. You pulling an all-nighter, Renfield? Just catching up on Curry's file? I said, trying to sound detached. He nodded, unconvinced. Intel says he's active again. Langley's watching him now too. I nodded. My mouth felt dry. Didn't know he was in D.C. recently, he added. Yeah, I said. A lot of people didn't. I logged off the terminal and left. Because what I had to do next wasn't going to be on the record. Not yet. I parked 2 blocks from our house and killed the engine. It was still early. The sky a bruised blue bleeding into gray. The neighborhood was quiet. Kids not yet on the sidewalk. Dogs not yet walked. Just the hum of heaters behind frosted windows and the distant whine of a garbage truck. I sat there watching my own front door like a stranger. The last time I'd come home, I hadn't known. Now I couldn't unknow. Ashley's car was in the driveway. She was home. Probably still asleep. Probably curled in our bed like nothing had changed, like the world hadn't cracked open beneath us. I checked the feed. A live link to the passive signal scanner I'd installed on her phone lit up my screen. Background chatter, GPS pings, encrypted packets. Normal noise for someone who claimed to only use social media and read online news. Except something was off. Her phone had connected to a local proxy router 5 hours ago, an anonymized relay node bouncing through Turkish IPs. That wasn't social media. That was obfuscation. And Ashley didn't know how to use a proxy. Not on her own. I opened the rear hatch and pulled the duffel I'd prepped at the safe house. Inside, a thermal scanner, a long-range mic, and a portable node for intercepting local Wi-Fi. None of it standard issue. All of it questionable, even for me. But I wasn't thinking like a husband anymore. I was thinking like an analyst under siege. I slipped around the back of the house, careful not to step on the frozen patches of grass that cracked underfoot. I knew every inch of our property, knew the blind spots, knew the vents that carried sound. I installed the node under the deck, magnetized, secure. From there, it would feed me everything. Every message, every call, every keystroke. When I got back to my car, I just sat there and waited. At 7:43 a.m., the front door opened. Ashley stepped out in her robe, coffee in hand, hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just detonated our lives. She stood on the porch, checking her phone. Then she paused, smiled, and typed something. Seconds later, a ping hit the node. Encrypted, delayed delivery, masked origin. She was communicating again, probably with him, with Curry. I should have felt rage. I didn't. I felt hollow, like I'd slipped out of my own skin and was watching another man's life unravel in real time. And still, part of me hoped, stupidly, pathetically, that she wasn't in on it, that there was an explanation that didn't end with her as an accessory to treason. But the data didn't lie. She was hiding something, and I was going to find out what. I didn't go into the house. Not yet. Instead, I drove back to the safe house and pulled up the intercept logs. The node had already started collecting fragments, signal pings, partial messages, some voice snippets from smart devices she probably didn't even realize were listening. I ran the audio through decryption protocols. One clip played on a loop in my headphones. Ashley's voice, low, urgent. I just don't think I can stall much longer. He's already suspicious. He was up most of the night. My stomach turned. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking about me. I scrubbed forward in the audio, found another snippet. This time, a male voice, faint, rough, with a slight accent. Don't panic. If he's watching, that works in our favor. He won't go public without evidence. You're the shield. I paused it there. You're the shield. What the hell did that mean? Was she protecting something? Being used as cover? Or, and this was somehow worse, was she doing it willingly? I opened the keystroke logs next. Most of it was boring, grocery lists, half-written texts, searches for new couch cushions, but buried beneath it, in a draft email never sent, I found this. Sometimes I wake up next to him and wonder how long I've been lying. At first it was necessary. Then it was easy. Now I'm not even sure I remember who I am. I stared at the text until the screen blurred. The ache behind my eyes became unbearable. That was her voice. But it wasn't. It was someone else, someone I didn't know. Someone who could cradle me at night, kiss me goodbye, and then text a foreign asset minutes later. And still, there was a tremor in that line. A sliver of doubt. Of something real. Regret? Guilt? It didn't matter. Because no matter how I tried to frame it, whether she was manipulated, compromised, conflicted, she was still involved. Still talking to Curry. Still lying to me. And now I had proof. The question was what I would do with it. Report her? Confront her? Bury it? I stood up, pacing the tiny safe house kitchen, heart pounding. I thought of the years we'd spent building a life together. The nights I'd held her through panic attacks. The mornings she'd made coffee and danced barefoot to old Bowie records. What had all of that been? Real? An illusion? Or just camouflage? I opened the secure server again and began drafting a report. It was clinical, factual, emotionless. Ashley Renfield, civilian, engaged in ongoing, unauthorized contact with flagged entity Amir Curry. Pattern consistent with insider breach or unwitting asset manipulation. Recommend surveillance extension and internal security review. I hovered over the send button. My finger didn't move. Because the moment I submitted that report, everything would change. She'd be flagged, investigated, watched, possibly detained. And so would I. Every detail of our lives, our marriage, our intimacy, exposed, dissected, judged. And maybe that was justice. Or maybe it was just revenge. I closed the laptop. I needed to see her. Face to face. I waited until nightfall. It wasn't about drama or timing. It was about readiness, about being calm enough to keep my hands from shaking and my voice from cracking. I rehearsed what I'd say on the drive over. Every line, every possible response. I told myself I wouldn't yell, wouldn't cry, wouldn't beg. I just needed answers. The house was lit from the inside when I pulled up. Warm light behind the curtains, like nothing was wrong. Like we were still the same couple with inside jokes and shared playlists. I opened the door. Ashley was in the kitchen, wearing one of my old sweatshirts, hair in a loose braid, humming to herself while stirring something on the stove. She turned, startled, then smiled, like everything was fine. "Hey," she said. "I didn't think you'd be back tonight. Everything okay at work?" I stared at her. How could she ask that? "Yeah," I said, voice hoarse. "We need to talk." Her face changed instantly. The smile fell. Her hands froze. A twitch, barely perceptible, in her left eye. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. She set the spoon down slowly. "What about?" I pulled the stool out at the island and sat, placing my phone between us. I tapped once, brought up a still frame of her and Corey outside the cafe. Then another. Her in the hotel hallway. The timestamp circled. Ashley didn't speak. She didn't look away, either. "I know," I said. "Everything." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I watched her closely, studied every movement, every flicker in her expression. I'd interviewed traitors before, watched spies unravel in interrogation rooms. This felt no different. "Are you going to lie to me?" I asked. She shook her head, eyes glassy, mouth trembling. "No." "Then tell me why." She sank into the chair across from me. Shoulders collapsed. No defenses. It started months ago. He wasn't supposed to be anything. Just someone I met at the nonprofit mixer. He was charming, smart. He asked questions you didn't. My stomach turned. She kept going. "I didn't know who he was at first. Not really. But when I found out, I thought. I don't know what I thought. That it wasn't serious. That it would end." "But it didn't," I said. My voice was quieter than I expected. "No," she whispered. "It didn't." "Why not?" She looked up then, eyes bloodshot. "Because I felt seen. Because I hated who I'd become. Because I didn't know how to tell you that I felt like your shadow, like your wife was the only part of me that mattered. And he listened. He made me feel like I mattered." I stared at her, heart pounding, ears ringing. "Do you know who he is?" I asked. "Really?" She nodded. "Not at first. But yes. I found out." "And you stayed?" She nodded again, slower this time. "Did he ask you to send anything? Tell him anything? Help him?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly, I swear. "I didn't pass him anything. Not from you. Not from your work. But you did talk about me." She hesitated. I was angry. I vented. I said things I didn't mean. I leaned back, closed my eyes. The silence between us was worse than any scream. "You know what this means, right?" I said finally. "You know what I have to do." Ashley's eyes welled. "Ethan, please. I'm not here to hurt you." I cut in. "But I can't protect you either." She reached across the counter, barely touching my hand. "I never meant for this to happen." I didn't move. "I know," I said. And I meant it. That didn't change a thing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room couch while Ashley disappeared upstairs, the creak of the steps like a metronome counting out the silence between us. At some point, I heard her crying, muffled through the walls. I didn't go to her. The footage played on my laptop in a continuous loop. The cafe, the hotel hallway, the frame where her head tilted just slightly, almost lovingly, into Curry's shoulder. I muted it, but the silence was louder than any sound. I kept replaying what she said. "He made me feel like I mattered." That stuck in my throat more than the lies, more than the betrayal. Because it forced me to ask a question I didn't want to face. Had I stopped seeing her too? I spent my life parsing code, surveillance, intentions. I could read a threat in 5 seconds flat. But I hadn't seen her slipping away from me. Hadn't noticed the way she wore her sadness like wallpaper. Quiet. Constant. Easy to ignore. But did that justify this? Did it explain him? Before dawn, I left again. Not for work, not officially. I drove to a black site buried under a storage warehouse, one we used for offline investigations. No cell towers. No Wi-Fi. Everything secure, and cold and gray. I had a badge that let me in. I needed to pull everything we had on Corey: raw files, unfiltered chatter, back-channel humor. If I was going to protect myself, protect this country, I needed the truth stripped of assumptions. The deeper I dug, the more the puzzle shifted. Curry wasn't just connected to arms networks. He was a signal router, a human relay point, using people as his encryption layers. Some knew, some didn't. Some were used for years without ever realizing. Ashley could still be one of the latter. But that wasn't the real gut punch. The real punch came in the form of a flagged phone call, intercepted 10 days ago, just after her hotel stay. Two voices, Curry and someone we hadn't yet ID'd. Voice 1, she's in. She doesn't even realize it. Voice 2, you sure? Voice 1, she thinks it's love, which makes her more valuable than ever. I sat there, breathing heavy. He used her. Or maybe she let herself be used. Either way, it was done. I knew then what had to happen. I couldn't report her through regular channels. Not yet. It would trigger a security lockdown on both of us. She'd be questioned. Our home raided. Our lives torn apart in front of federal agents with no room for mercy. I had to act first. Control the narrative. And maybe, just maybe, figure out a way to extract her before the system chewed her up. Because even now, even after everything, I wasn't sure I wanted to see her destroyed. By midday, I had a plan. It wasn't elegant, and it definitely wasn't clean, but in intelligence work, elegance doesn't survive contact with the enemy. Or with betrayal. I made 2 encrypted calls. The first was to a former colleague at Langley, now deep in the counterintel division. We'd worked together on a joint op in Qatar a few years back. Long nights, shared secrets, the kind of bond that sticks. I gave him just enough to raise eyebrows without revealing everything. Watch Curry, I said. He's more than a middleman. He's weaving something. The second call was riskier, to an off-the-books contact in Prague. A fixer. I needed a private exfil channel set up, not for Ashley. For me. Insurance. If everything imploded, I had to be able to disappear. When I got home that evening, Ashley was waiting. She sat at the edge of the couch like she was visiting someone else's life. She looked smaller, hollowed out. I know I can't ask for forgiveness, she said, eyes raw. But I'm scared, Ethan. Not of you. Of him. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard, took a breath. He's been contacting me through a messaging app you probably haven't seen. It uses code word triggers. He said, if I stop responding, they'll assume I've flipped. What did he ask for? I said quietly. Her lips trembled. Access. Nothing specific. Just leverage. He kept saying I was close to you, and that made me valuable. Did you give him anything? No, she said. I swear. I watched her. Measured her words, her face, her body language. I wanted to believe her, not just for her sake, but for mine. But I couldn't afford trust anymore. I sat beside her, slow and deliberate. If you want to fix this, you have to help me. She nodded. I'm not protecting you from consequences. But I can try to contain the damage, if you're honest from here on out. She looked at me like someone clinging to a lifeline. What do you need? Everything, I said. Every message. Every meeting. Every lie. For the next hour, we went through it all. Dates. Times. Conversations. What she told him. What he told her. I recorded every word. Stored the data on an encrypted drive. She even gave me the burner phone she used to talk to him. I could feel the storm building behind us. This wasn't just about me and Ashley anymore. This was about national integrity, breach of protocol, espionage. I stood up, my head spinning. I'll take this to a handler I trust. We'll see what can be done. She reached for my arm, gently. Ethan, do you hate me? I looked at her hand. At the ring still on her finger. The one I'd placed there 7 years ago with such certainty. I don't know what I feel, I said honestly. But I know this isn't over. The next morning, I met Langley. Not the building, the man. James Langley, my old contact. Early 50s, sharp suit, skin like paper, voice like gravel. The kind of guy who'd seen too much and talked too little. We met in a park outside Annapolis, where cameras were sparse and anonymity easier to fake. He lit a cigarette, his only vice, and didn't offer me one. Jesus, Ethan, he muttered after skimming the file. You're deep in the shit. I nodded. I need containment, not a crackdown. He raised an eyebrow. You're asking me to bury a national security breach for the sake of your marriage? I'm asking you to understand context. She didn't know who he was at first, and when she found out, she didn't know how to get out. He flicked Ash onto the bench. You think that'll matter to the OIG? To counterintelligence? You think they'll give a damn what she meant to do? If this hits the wire, they'll crucify both of you. I can give you everything, I said. Full message logs, burner trace, voice samples. You can track Corey's network using her as the origin point. But she needs to stay out of prison, at least until you finish pulling the threads. Langley studied me for a long moment. She lied to you, Ethan. I know. She compromised you. I know that too. He sighed, long and heavy, then dropped the cigarette into the snow. You've got 72 hours. After that, I can't hold the hounds. That night, back home, I couldn't look at Ashley. Not fully. Not like before. We sat in silence. She tried to talk, once or twice. But I wasn't ready. Not for closure. Not for forgiveness. I spent hours reviewing the metadata, building Corey's movement map, tracing burner phones to real-world locations. My mind was back in the analyst grind, running scripts, chasing threads. It almost felt like clarity, until I hit one address that made my blood freeze. It wasn't Corey's. It was Ashley's sister's apartment. One Corey had never been tied to before, but Ashley had stayed there during one of her business weekends. And now, Corey's digital fingerprint had pinged from the same location. 2 weeks ago. He'd been there, while Ashley was there. Or worse, with her family. The implications hit hard. If this had bled into my in-laws, the fallout would be catastrophic. It would prove she was either lying again, or had brought this poison into her family's orbit without understanding it. Either way, it was another layer of betrayal. I stormed upstairs, heart thundering. Ashley was brushing her hair, like nothing was wrong. Why was Corey at your sister's place? I asked, voice flat. She froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying. She snapped, her voice cracking. He never met them. He swore he wouldn't go near. He swore. I shouted, louder than I meant to. She flinched. I stared at her, really stared, and realized something terrifying. She wasn't just a breach. She was collateral. Collateral I'd loved, slept next to, dreamed with. And now, possibly, the weakness that could bring everything I'd built to its knees. That night, I dreamt of burning files and blank faces, of classified documents fluttering into flames while Ashley stood in the smoke, saying nothing, just staring at me, unblinking, expressionless. I woke up drenched in sweat, the kind of waking that doesn't bring relief, just clarity. The clock said 3:21 a.m. Downstairs, I plugged back into the surveillance node. The data from Ashley's phone had spiked around midnight. A string of location-based pings, irregular, as if she was pacing, or being tracked. Then something new appeared in the logs, a received call from a satellite number tied to northern Jordan. The encryption was standard, Tier 3, but the route was suspicious. When I decrypted the metadata, my blood ran cold. There had been a trigger phrase embedded in the call header. Phase shift. I'd only seen it used once, 2 years ago, in a covert op in Estonia. It was a dead drop signal, a marker that something had changed, that someone was compromised, or about to flip. Once triggered, it would initiate an extraction protocol for operatives in the field, or, if necessary, terminate the risk. It meant Curry knew. He knew Ashley had talked, and if he was half the operator I feared she was in danger. I ran upstairs, 2 steps at a time, heart pounding. Her side of the bed was empty. Panic spiked. I burst into the hallway, checked every room, bathroom, guest room, downstairs. Nothing. Her phone was still in the living room, screen cracked, one corner charred, like someone had torched it with a lighter. And on the kitchen counter, scrawled on the back of a receipt, was a note in her handwriting. I'm sorry. I had to end it on my terms. Don't follow me. I stood there, the world tilting sideways. My vision tunneled. She was gone. She had either run or been taken. And either way, the walls were closing in. I made one call. Langley answered after one ring. Talk. She's disappeared, I said. And there's a trigger phrase in play. Silence. Then, Jesus, Ethan, you have any idea what you've unleashed? I didn't respond, because I did know, and it was already too late to stop it. NSA protocol says to report disappearances within 4 hours. Langley gave me 2. I used every second. First, I ran facial recognition through traffic cams within a 5-mile radius. It was 4:03 a.m. when I found her. Ashley. Alone. Hoodie, backpack, moving fast down a side street in Arlington. No signs of a tail. That was a relief, briefly. Then, 20 minutes later, I caught a second image. Not of her, of a man. Similar build to Kuri. Half a block behind. Hands in pockets. Face turned away, but the gait matched what we'd profiled. He was following her. God damn it. She was trying to disappear quietly, but she wasn't alone. By 4:50, I triangulated her path, metrobound. Heading east. Possibly to Union Station, maybe trying to flee the city. But I wasn't chasing her to stop her. I was trying to keep her alive. I reached out to Langley again. She's on foot. No security detail. She's trying to vanish without implicating us. Langley exhaled sharply. Then she's either nobler than I thought, or a bigger idiot. What happens if Corey finds her first? There was a pause. Then the report writes itself. Internal breach, suspect terminated by foreign actor. We clean it up. Quietly. She's not a suspect. She's a person. My wife. Another silence. Then find her, Ethan. Before we do. I ended the call. No backup. No net. Just me, a burner laptop, and a trail gone cold in the dark. I checked her banking activity. She'd withdrawn $200 in cash 2 hours earlier. No card usage since. I scanned transit logs. Checked burner cell tower pings. There was a single hit 15 minutes ago, near a storage facility in Navy Yard. I drove like a madman. When I got there, the street was empty. Fog curling around streetlights. I found the unit she'd rented under her maiden name. Same one she'd used on the consulting invoices Corey laundered. The lock was broken. Inside, nothing but a duffel bag, a half-empty bottle of water, and a burner phone with no SIM. No Ashley. I sank to my knees. I'd failed. Not as an analyst. As a husband. She was out there, alone, hunted, maybe already gone, because she'd tried to do the right thing too late. And I couldn't even protect her. I didn't go home. Didn't even think about it. Instead, I drove to the one place I hoped the system hadn't touched, a secure uplink site buried under a maintenance building just outside Laurel, Maryland. It wasn't on most maps. That was the point. I keyed in, descended the narrow stairs, and powered up an isolated console. No connection to internal networks. No traceable logs. It was here I found her. Not in person, in voice. A voicemail, buried in the encrypted files on the burner phone she left behind. I had to bypass 3 layers of spoof routing just to access it. Then I heard her. Ashley. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Ethan, if you're hearing this, I'm probably gone. I don't know how this ends, but I wanted you to know. I never stopped loving you. I know how that sounds after everything I did. But it's true. You were the only thing in my life that ever felt real. There was a pause. A long breath. I pictured her somewhere, scared, alone, holding that phone like a lifeline. He was never supposed to be anything. It started because I was lost, and he saw that. But it turned into something darker. He threatened to expose things. I didn't have a way out. I tried to tell you, but I couldn't even forgive myself, let alone ask you to. Another pause. A trembling inhale. I left because I thought if I ran, I could draw them away from you. From your work. I thought maybe if I disappeared, you could salvage something from all this. I hope I was right. I leaned back in the chair, gutted. Her voice played on. You once told me that the worst part of this job wasn't the lies you uncovered. It was the truth you never wanted to find. I finally understand that now. I hope you do too. And then silence. No goodbye. Just a static click. I played it again. And again. Every word a dagger. She hadn't run from me. She tried to protect me. But she was up against something she never understood, something no one ever trained her for. And now, I had a choice. Close the file and let the system erase her. Or go off-grid and finish what she couldn't. I knew what going rogue meant. The moment I accessed the off-network system to trace her call location, I was already halfway down that path. But now I leaned into it. I burned my credentials, both sets. Disabled my GPS, dumped the agency laptop in a canal. I drove south in an unregistered vehicle, swapping plates every 200 miles. No calls. No digital trace. If I was going to find her, I needed to become someone else. Not Ethan Renfield, NSA intelligence analyst. Just a man chasing the ghost of the woman he once knew. Her last ping came from Savannah, Georgia, 3 days ago. Close to the port. Smart. Transit-rich, low profile, high turnover of faces. I found the camera footage at a hotel that didn't ask for ID. Ashley was wearing a wig, hunched in a hoodie, alone. She looked thin. Exhausted, but alive. The timestamp was from the night before the voicemail. And then, nothing. No further sightings. No paper trail. Like she dissolved into the fog. Except, I knew her better than anyone. Knew her tells. Her comfort food. The way she used to doodle spirals in the margins of every notebook. I searched for them, not in data streams, but in the real world. And then I saw it. At a late-night diner south of the city, someone had left behind a receipt. On the back, 3 small spiral doodles, faint pencil lines, smudged, barely visible. Next to it, a single word. Exit. Was it meant for me? I showed the waitress a photo. She remembered her. Said she sat alone for hours. Barely touched her food. Paid in cash. Left quietly. No one followed. The exit she referred to, maybe it wasn't just literal. Maybe she was done running. Maybe she'd found a way out that didn't involve me or Corey or the NSA. Or maybe she'd given up. I left the diner shaken but determined. Then I saw the man in the parking lot. He was leaning against a rusted sedan, smoking. Dark jacket. Scar above his eyebrow. Not local. He looked up, caught my eye, and smiled, a little too knowingly. I'd seen that smile before. Curry's men were here. The clock wasn't just ticking. It was almost up. I didn't flinch. I'd spent too many years staring down shadows to let this man see fear. I walked past him, calm, controlled. Got into my car and drove 3 blocks before pulling a hard right into an alley behind an abandoned gas station. Killed the lights. Sat in silence. Waited. 30 minutes later, he drove by slow. Didn't stop. He wasn't tailing me. Not yet. Which meant they weren't sure where I was. Just circling. Closing in. Ashley's message echoed in my head. Don't follow me. But that was never an option. I used the last of my untraceable resources. A satellite tap from a Balkan contact who owed me a favor. One final search. One last hope. And there she was. Facial recognition. 8 hours ago. A border crossing in northern Mexico, heading south. Alone. Hair dyed. Passport fake, but flawless. She'd escaped. I don't know how. I don't know what deal she cut, what favors she burned, what parts of herself she had to bury along the way. But she was out. And Corey's men weren't following her anymore. They were following me. So I made a decision. I left a breadcrumb trail, deliberate, slow, obvious. Let them think I was still searching. Let them follow me into the chaos. Then I made my call. Langley picked up. It's done, I said. You sure? Yeah. She's gone. And she stays gone. He was silent. Then, you're burning it all down, Ethan. Was already burning, I said. I'm just lighting the fuse. I ended the call and dropped the burner into a storm drain. I walked away. No more tracing, no more analyzing, no more salvaging. I disappeared into the night, leaving behind the analyst, the husband, the man who used to believe that truth and love were enough. They weren't. Not in this world. All I have now is silence. And the knowledge that sometimes the only way to win is to lose everything first.